Of the Tim here, Tim Alexander. Blog is Europe.business with one s.blogspot.com. And Tim, we have an issue we're going to talk about at the bottom of the hour with the loss of the nuclear technicians over Fukushima. It's pretty serious. But let's get into the news. We had on the first hour today, Gun Owners of America, Larry Pratt, founder. We're in a very fulcrum year. I mean, literally the gates of hell are about to burst forward here in America. And if America goes down the toilet, which unfortunately there's a lot of signs that don't look good, especially what I call the circular firing squad that we have now in the RNC, where they're all sending such hatred between, say, Cruz and Trump and the other candidates in the Republican National Committee. They're virtually guaranteeing either Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders gets in and she gets indicted or her reputation gets destroyed enough. And these progressive communists will destroy the last remnants of what America is. We have to understand that if America goes down the toilet, so does the whole world. Probably in a thermonuclear, biological, and chemical war. It's not going to be pretty.
That's where we're headed. And by the way, you said gates of hell. That brings up the lead article I have on the first update to my site today.
Right.
This is a follow-on to the three articles I spoke of Tuesday. On April 19th, the Temple Bar in New York City and also in London will be made operational. Be open.
Temple what? The Temple what will be made operational?
BAAL.
Oh, you're talking about that. Which date is that now? You're talking
April
about
19th, and here's the interesting thing.
April 19th, isn't that right around Passover or Pesach? Because remember the Brussels bombing occurred on the eve of...
When the blood sacrifice to the beast begins.
Right, right at Passover.
Mythology.
That's interesting. Wow.
And, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, you look at it, and I'm used to seeing a lot of bizarre stuff. And when you deal with the Illuminati, global banking cartel characters, there's a lot of bizarre stuff, and a lot of imaging is very important. But you read this stuff, you say, "Wow!" And they're going to open, and they're going to do these in 1,000 cities in the following weeks. I mean, because essentially, I think it's a electronic projection, 48 feet high and 30-some feet wide. And it's again, see, I was a professor of humanities, and I used to teach about this area where this is from. They just recovered that actual temple bar the Syrian army did just a few days ago, and in Mesopotamia and all this. But why, if you're going, I mean, of all the thousands of historic sites you could project, why do this temple, this gateway?
It's pretty straightforward, Tim. We're in the end times. We're actually formally into birth pangs. We are before the final peace treaty sign, which we're coming up to. We see a meltdown of the Republic of America, and the globalists are doing everything they can. Even, for example, with Bernie Sanders, who is somewhat better, at least in terms of framing the issues, but has no solutions. He's winning in all the states and the Democrats, and Hillary Clinton's got
he's
so
won
stacked.
the last several.
6 out of 7.
Here's the interesting thing, and I'm not a Bernie supporter. He has said some good things, but he's neo-communist, and that is a failed system. But the mainstream media has ignored the fact that he's on a roll. I mean, Hillary hasn't been winning any. He's been winning them all.
Do you imagine how many people are disenfranchised on the Democrat and Republican side if neither Sanders nor Trump or Cruz gets in? What will happen? Now, Cruz is dirty. This man is incredibly evil, incredibly connected to the powers that be and the Goldman Sachs and the Wall Street bankers and the CFR, his wife, Heidi Cruz. And I believe, I said this in the first hour, I'm going to repeat it for people that don't get it yet. The super PAC that owned this photo that they got, by the way, the photo was dug up by apparently Marco Rubio, but it was given to the super PAC for Cruz, and I can guarantee that he knew that this letter was going to preemptively aggravate Trump, who's a counterpuncher, and of course Trump doesn't have the smarts to realize that you're in politics now, you're not in business, where you can counterpunch. What he did is he put up a retweet about showing who's got the hotter wife. But the real issue was not whether they're hot, because Heidi Cruz is one of the primary authors of the North American Union and the PNAC document, the Project for the New American Century.
Which has cost us millions of jobs.
Right, and the fact is that she is incredibly evil. I don't know if she's smart, but she's driven, and she's evil as hell. And when people have to understand this, she's not just the first lady. She is another person like Hillary Clinton that's very driven, very evil, and has already got creds to prove that she wants to have a global new world order where America becomes only a trade zone and our national boundaries are dissolved. So we have Canada, the United States, and Mexico as one trade zone, Area 3 of the New World Order, or Area 1, whatever you're going to call it, according to the Council on Foreign Relations Journal called Foreign Affairs, published in the fall of
Wouldn't you call that treason against the United States and everything?
Yeah, exactly. And the fact is, when we hear Cruz trying to pretend he's an outside guy and he's not in Wall Street, what about the $1.2 million loan and all kinds of other things that connect him personally to the bankers in New York and to the RNC?
Goldman Sachs specifically.
Yeah, he's working with Marco Rubio and with the head of the Senate, and people like Phil Gramm that he's trying to push that actually created the crisis of 2008. This man is nuts, and he's a big liar. He's very intelligent, and he's a narcissistic megalomaniac. And when he was there with this crazy Glenn Beck needs to be in a psych ward. When he's called "the stabbing won't stop" of Trump, why was he not arrested? Why? Tell me. And then what's the most amazing?
In the past, if you had went on the air and called for the murder of a presidential candidate, the Secret Service would have been knocking at your door within a few hours.
They don't do anything.
Why hasn't that happened in multiple cases now?
Well, now we have this guy that actually grabbed the ankle and tried to stab, and he said it was a political action. This idiot.
The man attacked a presidential candidate on stage in front
and he got
of the world, and he went in a revolving door. He was out within an hour or two.
Right, and what happened when the media thought he was a media darling and went after him to ask the reason why he wanted to attack Trump, and says, "Oh, Trump is a racist. Trump is this. Trump is that." I'm thinking they keep repeating it, but like the old Russian saying, if you throw enough mud against the wall, some of it's going to stick. These idiots, like, for example, I saw an interview on Fox about they asked people in one of these whole anti-Trump rallies why they think Trump is a racist, why he's this and that, and they just go blah, 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 blah. They don't even have a clear thought in their mind as to why they can say these things when there's no evidence for it. None.
Well,
zero. Nada.
They're listening to sound bites and not ascertaining what's behind them. They're not thinking, critical thinking. Most people don't critically think anymore.
Right.
That's sad. But by the way, Donald Trump in Wisconsin today has said the establishment is trying to take it away from us. Let me quote from him. The establishment is trying to take it all away from us, folks. They're trying so hard. He noted the fact that he won Louisiana, but still ended up with less delegates there than Cruz.
Yeah, the reason what he did there is
that. He said, "You tell me, is this a straight system, folks? It's terrible. It's terrible."
Right. Well, what happened there is the delegates from Marco Rubio were allowed to drift, and of course Rubio, behind the scenes, is still playing kingmaker, trying to play games with maybe he tries to figure if he's going to get a plum position or become vice president. Rubio is another sneaky maniac that's in the Bush family cadre, and what we have is a bunch of very corrupt people that are psychotic or sociopathic that want to become president, and we have the only man who's what I call a blue-collar billionaire, Donald Trump, who sees the nation going down the toilet. You can already hear the flushing sound and circulating the bowl, and if they do take this away, I think Trump should run independent. Even if he doesn't win the election, at least this cycle, he will prove that there needs to be a third or fourth party. But
we've got to make some fundamental changes. I don't think we're going to be here in 4 years if we don't.
No, here's what I think will happen.
The Third World War.
I think this year you're going to have major terrorism on American soil. You'll have a domestic security bill that'll be pushed by Obama. They may delay the election. Eventually, they want to have a third term of Obama, either Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders if she's indicted. Remember, you can't be sworn as a president if you're wearing orange. Not legal. Publish button so I can pop down.
Before I forget, there's one, this is actually from yesterday, but it is one I want to cover real quick, and I will forget if I don't do it now. Trump. Hillary is getting away with murder. He promises to investigate, to appoint people who will investigate Hillary's criminal activity. Now he also said, can you imagine what kind of Attorney General or Supreme Court Justice Clinton would appoint?
Oh, listen, her other name is Lilith, the daughter of Satan. If Hillary Clinton gets in there, it's all holes barred, because she tries to put a domestic security bill, or Obama does, and tries to start seizing guns. And I had Ray Pratt on from GOA. I'm a GOA member, Gun Owners of America. I trained over with the Marines over at Ironside, which I'm going to start doing again with my son. What you have to understand is, this is the end of America. If this term we don't get someone that wants to rebuild or make America great again like Donald Trump. And by the way, I'm going to put a picture of my granddaughter, who's now 1 on April 2nd this weekend. And she has one of Donald Trump's hats on. And she look cute. I mean, she's got what I call the cute creds. This little girl, I can't believe that I'm related to her. I mean, this is my granddaughter, and she's like really, really smart and cute at 1. She knows how to say hi and bye and talk now at 1 year of age. And she's got a Donald Trump hat. She's already cheering for Donald.
Well, we have to wake people up and wake up ourselves and start calling a spade, because I'll tell you, we can't handle 4 more years of the level
America
of corruption that we have, because, first off, there is this march towards war. We just announced we're going to put another armored brigade into Europe and move it around up in the various Nordic countries, and Russia is warning. There's no reason. There's no reason for that. Russia doesn't want a war with us. And China really doesn't want a war with us either. China is now rolling out its DF-41, the longest range and fastest ICBM on Earth. Will carry 10 hydrogen warheads, and it can hit New York City in, I think it's 21 minutes, something like that. Right. It's pinpoint accuracy. You know
why I got pinpoint accuracy?
When Clinton was president,
yes,
their ICBMs couldn't hardly hit a state, and now they can hit a neighborhood because he, in a crooked deal, authorized an American aerospace firm to sell them the technology to do that.
By the way, there were kickbacks to their foundation ever since. Billions of dollars coming from Arab states and so on, and countries wanting access to sell and buy weapons on the open market needed State Department approval. So it was a slush fund to go to their massive, if you want to call it, non-government organization, NGO, which is a pile of crap. So what we have is a really deadly situation here. And I had a caller a few weeks ago, and they said, well, they called in, they wanted to know, why is my son being deployed to the Russian border? Why is my son being... I said, it's because the Americans are deploying these new first strike weapon systems along the Russian-Polish border to hit the Russian missiles as they go into their launch phase before they get into near orbit.
Yeah, but the solution the Russians have to that is the S-Lander missile, which travels somewhere between Mach 8 and maybe Mach 10 or 11. It's the fastest missile out there. Now, its range is maybe 900 nautical miles, but it's so fast you virtually can't shoot it down. It flies fairly low.
Well, that's what they took
and of course, it can carry a nuclear warhead. So the solution to all these systems on the border of Russia is the Russians will just nuke them very quickly, and then they can do their launch sequence. This stuff is so nutty anymore. Here's a real good quote. Marco, I posted yesterday, was about from democracy to pathology. Politicians are more likely than people in general, in the general population, to be sociopaths. I think you would find no expert in this field of sociopathology, psychopathology, and antisocial personality disorder who would dispute this. There's a small minority of human beings literally have no conscience, and that there is this small minority of human beings that have no conscience was and is a bitter pill for our society to swallow. But it does explain a great many things, shamelessly deceitful political behavior being one. And this is a clinical psychologist and former instructor at Harvard Medical School, Dr. Martha Stout, that said this. I mean, many of these people, when you look at them, Foam Boy Rubio, Lying Cruz, and by the way, I don't know what this game is with Cruz. Now, maybe they figure they can get this enough justices on the Supreme Court to say black is white and white is black. But there are 50 states, plus the District of Columbia, all of which send people to the Electoral College. And he can be challenged in every state between now and the general election. Barack Obama got by with fudging everything about who he was, where he was from, because he was a black man, and people didn't want to be a racist and try to stop the first black from being elected. Cruz is not black. He's a Canadian. His father was a native-born Canadian. His mother was an American. She became a Canadian citizen, gave up her American citizenship, and Cruz was born in Canada. By no wild stretch of the imagination does he meet the qualifications of the United States Constitution, which requires any president or vice president to be a native-born American citizen. He's not. And you can't lie your way past that or BS your way past it or spin your way past it. He's not. So he's going to be stopped before the election in multiple jurisdictions. You might intimidate these honchos at the top may intimidate lots of federal and state judges. They won't intimidate them all. Now, okay, he's out. So who's going to be in? They're going to. I mean, this is so nutty. So, what are you going to get, Hillary? Well, Hillary is facing indictments. Hillary, look, Strong has at least 5 women who will have sworn affidavits and will testify under oath that after Bill Clinton raped them, Hillary Clinton intimidated them in silence, had private detectives following them, scared them, etc., etc. Now, that's conspiracy after the fact.
Yeah, in fact, Roger Stone, we're going to have on the program here in the next week or so.
Yes, Roger Stone.
Right, who's actually one of the affiliates of the Trump campaign. He'll be coming on here to talk about it. He's got a number of books out about the Bush crime cartel and about the Clintons, etc.
See, the problem is these people at the top, they put these sociopaths, these psychopaths in because they can control them. And they're so immoral, they'll do anything. They'll sell their mother for a quarter. But they're sick, and it blows up on them. And we shouldn't allow it to happen anymore. It's our very lives and future that's on the line, folks.
This year is the year it's going to either get fixed or it's going to go to hell. The whole song, maybe we'll play more of it sometime. It'll make you laugh.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've got a new bumper song there, huh?
We get rid of one, bumper 2, it wasn't very good, so the bumper, this new one is really good. And if you listen to the full song by Steely Dan, it'll make you laugh and cry at the same time. It'll make you wake up. It's one of those things like Gnarls Barkley's song about they say he's crazy, but he's a conspiracy theorist. And by the way, Trump is too. When he mentioned theater air defense, he has been in the facility underground. He knows this. The fact that he knows all these things means he's probably as knowledgeable as anybody who listens to all the programs on this and other networks that deal with conspiracy. It's not a theory. It's a conspiracy fact. Well,
the term conspiracy theory was invented by a group from the CIA, and it was packaged in a way to make it seem like, you have aluminum foil on your head if you dare to question anything the mass media tells you or the government tells you. In fact, just the opposite is how any intelligent person should be. You should question everything they tell you because, first off, most of the people in Washington are a bunch of damn crooks, and that's the least thing you can say about them.
Right.
In reality, I've watched every episode that they've aired on Netflix's House of Cards, and it's very shocking to people just how corrupt this fictional administration is in the House.
Yeah. Let me change it for topic
like
for
a Sunday school playground compared to real life.
Let me change the topic just a bit here to Fukushima, because I don't think we're going to track down Chris. He sent me this article. Fukushima cleanup faces labor shortage, and I'll post the article so people can read it themselves. It's on NaimaMagazine.com. It's interesting. Naima is my mother's family maiden name, which comes from the Niami tribe, that were the tribe of the Kurds in Esfahan, 2,800 years ago, that married the daughter of the king of the Medes and took on their tribal name. So the family that were descendants directly in the 24 family cycle of the Kohanim, which are direct blood descendants of Moses, is my family on my mother's side. And it's interesting to mention the term Naima. So if you go through the Middle East and you hear Naima or various variations on it, they're all half Kurdish and half Kohenic, directly blood descendants from Moses. Interesting, eh?
Nyman, is that one of them?
Naima, N-E-I-M-A. So that's why we hear Dr. Nyman, who's a
well,
virologist.
Some of that is in my ancestry.
Right, it means you have some Kohenic descendants directly from Moses.
Could be, way back.
There's no could be. My great uncle had all the documents that go back.
You know what Hitler called us? He said, America's a race of bastards. You're all mixed up. Well, you know what? If you've ever had dogs, often the mongrel dog is the one that's the smartest and toughest. He's got a little bit of everything in him. So, considering the source of that comment, I take it as a compliment. I have Scottish and German and Luxembourg and French and Irish and all kind of ancestry in me, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Fukushima cleanup faces labor shortage, and I want to just summarize. It means not only Fukushima, but all the nuclear plants in the world are running out of employees that are experienced to work around these plants. And a lot of them are like in Switzerland. There's 5 plants. They all sit within 5 miles of a fault zone. And the Germans trying to get rid of the nuclear reactors. There's almost 600 reactors and more that Rosatom Russia sold, or we sold, 182 billion last summer, with his bromance with the president of India, the Abominator. And they want to build all these breeder reactors that create nuclear materials that can be used in a nuclear war. Now, if we think that the trigger point for war is the Middle East or Ukraine, the trigger point for war is between India and Pakistan.
Yeah, and I have some articles that I plan on posting. I usually have 50 or so in the background. I don't always get to them. But several are on that very thing. The Pakistanis have taken a lot of heat lately because they have introduced some fairly short to medium range missiles that are nuclear capable. They're tactical battlefield missiles, and they literally are capable of producing a very large number of these. Well, looking at things from the Pakistani perspective, India is many times its size. India has a far larger Air Force, Army, Navy, the whole bit. And so from a pure self-defense perspective, Pakistan has got to not only have large city-busting hydrogen bombs, which it has, but it has to have a battlefield nuclear force, and it's developing that quite well. Now, Pakistan actually has a larger nuclear force than India does, and they have one plant that they opened up about a year and a half ago that is cranking out enough reprocessed plutonium for 50 hydrogen bombs a year.
Exactly.
Now, if they ever cut loose with one another, and by the way, the warning time across the India-Pakistani border is something like a minute. And in terms of getting into Indian and Pakistani cities, a few minutes of airtime. So you talk about launch on warning. If they ever cut loose, this death and destruction from a nuclear war on the Indian subcontinent will go all over the world. Probably a nuclear winter. God help us.
Well, in fact, you can stretch that to 2 minutes. But it means that someone has to decide to either launch what's called anti-missile systems like theater air defense, which, by the way, with this deal that's going on with America and India, it not only gives them a lot more nuclear material because of these $182 billion worth of reactors, but I'm certain that besides the comment of Trump, Obama is already doing it to sell nuclear materials and more advanced theater air defense to Seoul, South Korea, which now with the moves in North Korea, this guy, Kim Jong-un, is getting crazier and crazier by the minute. I mean, his movie doesn't do credit to how nuts he is.
Yeah, he's putting on weight. He's actually gained quite a bit just in the last 6 months. He was a porker before, but he's really a porker.
Do you know why he's putting on weight?
I'm a skinny guy, so I can say that. But I want to tell you, his latest comment yesterday was he warned his people that they were going to have to eat grass again, warned them of a great famine coming. And coming from a guy that's probably 300 pounds and all blubber, little fat baby face that he's got with that weird haircut, and he's telling his millions of people that there's going to be mass starvation again.
Well, I think
it's amazing that they haven't turned. I mean,
that's because well, I think he's doing the bidding of the military people behind him. They were actually exhuming bodies a few years ago. They exhumed 500,000 people in their graves and ate the dead bodies. They were stripping off the bark of trees and eating roots. And the reason why he's obese is because he's eaten his old girlfriends and his enemies. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But he's so weird, he might be.
Are you kidding or serious?
I'm kidding. Okay, I don't know. Obviously, he's getting caviar and other things flown in. And again, just like his father, he's got probably a luxury car selection in a big garage. I mean, the guy is... this movie, I don't know if you saw the interview. If you want to laugh your head off, the actors in it are pretty crazy. And I think he died listening to the song from Katy Perry, you know.
Well, he's a classic example of how nutty things get when you have a true sociopath, a psychopath, that gets into absolute power. What the globalists are trying to do is to create a global new world order where they sit at the top, a handful of them, and they're going to have absolute power over all of us. Of course, they want to wipe most of us out in WW3.
Okay, you have Chris now. Chris, tell us about this article you have. This is kind of scary because it's not just a Fukushima problem. It's a global problem with all these fission reactors that generate new nuclear material. I guess stay there. When we come back from the break, we'll hear your summary. But this is catastrophic, and especially because they're going to get into the heavier detoxification of Fukushima alone. But all these other plants are trying to put in mothballs, like in Switzerland and Germany. They all depend on having experts, and they're running out of them. Back in a moment. Chris Harris. Chris, tell us, you have two articles here that are important for people to understand, and they have some pretty shadowy and scary things about them. Tell us about the two articles.
Well, the first one was that, just as we had mentioned before, once you expose people to too much radiation in one period of time, they cannot do any more work during another calendar period. And this article says that we're running out of skilled workers to do the cleanup at Fukushima, and it's leaving actually a shortage worldwide of skilled people who have that kind of training. And really, we've discussed that. You know, I said, don't burn out the operators, don't kill them off. You need them. You need them to understand how the system works and what to do. And here, this is a very good article that discusses that they are indeed running out of people who could possibly do it, and then they're trying to get around it in certain ways by changing names of companies and things like that, where you could say, well, start off fresh again. It's a new company, and you could go ahead and re-expose these people, you know, these workers to more, but that's illegal, and they're getting called out on it. So something that we predicted or talked about a long time ago is actually coming to happen right now. The other article, which I thought was very interesting because we had also covered it a long time ago, is that no plans in TEPCO's grand scheme of things involve doing something with the millions of bags of radioactive dirt, because the people coming back into the areas had to have a place to live, and they said, well, we would decontaminate all the areas in your house from fallout. And so they started filling up all these bags. I know, Tim, you had brought this up too. But there's no plan into doing anything with it. So now you just have these bags piled up everywhere. What do you do with it? I mean, you know, you cleaning one thing makes something else dirty by its very nature, and they have no plan for disposing of this material properly. And so those are two of the main topics that...
right. In other words, the nuclear industry is in is moribund, and we're all being radioactively salted up with bioaccumulating radiotoxins, and the regulatory agencies, the IAEA, the NRC, and others are basically trying to whistle while the bow of the boat is about to go under. The stern is already under the water, and no one has life jackets on or rebreather things or air tanks or anything, and they're all acting like everything's going to be fine, and there's a storm cloud getting on the horizon while we're 1,000 miles from the shoreline. And
there's sharks, too.
And the sharks, by the way.
Yeah, but look, guys, you look on the positive side. We keep accumulating enough radiation, we'll eventually glow in the dark, and then we'll save on energy.
Well, I'll do an analogy to one of the jokes I've heard years ago by an attorney who told me this, because he has a kind of a sideways view about a lot of his colleagues. And he said there was a whole bunch of a cruise boat with a lot of attorneys on it that it happened to sink in shark-infested waters in the Pacific. And what happened is when they came by to get the bodies, they found all of the attorneys were in three-piece suits, and they were fine, and they were just treading water, and the sharks hadn't eaten them. And one of the attorneys on the camera said, well, why didn't they eat you guys? He says, it's a professional courtesy. Now, I think that's what's going on with the globalists. They somehow think that this can't affect them or their children. But Mr. Soros, who looks like, as I say, he's there like, Darth Vader on his wheelchair with oxygen and everything. He looks like the Baron Harkonnen from Dune floating around in this little, anti-gravity suit. And the fact is, this man is, the only reason why he's not dead is because he hasn't slapped the last coat of paint on his apartment in hell.
Yeah.
And he killed his own people out in World War II, and it's amazing that they've allowed him to live. But,
yeah, and by the way, this man has said the most exciting time of his life was grabbing the gold teeth and the fine art and so on from Jewish people, his own blood, and giving it to the Nazis, because remember, he was an agnostic atheist, and he thought it was the most exciting time of his life. So when we have that guy pushing Black Lives Matter and the terrorists that want to start problems in Cleveland with the GOP convention that's coming up, I guarantee you don't see it happening in the Democratic convention, do you? Do you see people coming in there and getting enraged at the idea that Trump is even having a chance to talk to people and having our First Amendment rights? No, you don't see that.
Oh, by the way, tomorrow Rand Paul is making an announcement. My guess, he will be endorsing Trump.
Good, because we know that Trump is, in a sense, a lot of his policies are libertarian. They're libertarian policies. I mean, he's not a complete libertarian. He's a populist libertarian. And he's pro-life. And, in fact, he made a little gaffe the other day, and he said, that if the Supreme Court and the courts make it illegal to do abortion, women should be punished. Women that do abortion, basically, they're misinformed or they're mentally ill or they're abandoned. A lot of time abandoned by their man and abandoned by their society. You don't punish the woman. You punish the doctors and nurses in the facilities that do this procedure. He made a gaffe thinking, well, the women somehow need to be punished. Well, I don't know how you punish somebody who's done a crime against their own body and against their child. Already losing their child, most of these women are going to get cancer at a higher rate. I reviewed this and presented to as a paper to the Royal Commission on New Reproductive Technologies in 1992. They're going to have psychological problems. They're going to have attachment problems to their future husband or family. And they're going to have a coldness that's going to make it very difficult with them, with that bitterness, to ever have a permanent relationship with anybody. And if people think that doesn't happen, that's why Hillary Clinton has had at least several abortions. She only kept Chelsea because it looked good to have a child, especially for the First Lady of the President. So you have to understand what's really going on here. These people are damaged. And to compound that, you need to have psychological help. Again, it's like somebody who's a drug addict. Do we need to decriminalize it and say, if we find as a toxicologist illegal drugs in your body, whether you like it or not, you're going off to a treatment facility until we can put you in a no-patient facility and monitor you with toxicology because you have a medical problem, a drug addiction problem. You aren't to be criminalized or treated like...
Actually, Hawaii is considering following Portugal in decriminalizing all drugs.
Well, the way to do it is you go after the distributor of drugs with a viciousness that's even more aggressive. But the people who are viciously damaged by it, you treat them as a medical disaster. That's what you do. You don't put them in prison so they learn skill sets, along with their drug addiction, to become violent drug-addicted criminals.
Yep.
Or you take a black person because they had 3 different tokes of marijuana, had a little bag in their pocket, and give them 3 strikes, you're out 30 years in prison. That's nuts. So we need to grab the criminals who are distributing the drugs, but we need the victims of their crime to treat them like damaged people. And so I'm glad that Trump reversed his statement, but he realized just how evil abortion is. This is one of the few things that Islam gets right. If you're doing abortions, you get beheaded and have your hands cut off before Friday morning prayer so it doesn't disrupt the prayer cycle. If you do abortion. The reason why they're taking over Europe and the world is with the baby carriage, not the bullet. You don't need to do a political jihad with bombs. You just need to make babies. That's all you got to do. Over a couple generations, Islam will take over the world even if they're all screwed up. They're going to take them over because they're not killing their progeny. 55 million Americans didn't make it into this world or have another generation since 1973. So it's 55 million, at least initially, and probably half of that would have had children, at least 2 children. So you're probably topping up around 100 million people died in the womb or never had their descendants occur because of our stupid agreement, which even the Supreme Court has stated very clearly. If they just prove the personhood issue, like the idea of inheritorship, for example, if a mother dies and a child lives, the child in her womb, who may survive in an ICN for the next 5 or 6 weeks or whatever, has the right of inheritorship of the property. So if it has property rights, it's a person. It's not a lump of flesh, and it's not her body. It's a separate genetic person. And if you don't make that person exist from the moment of conception, somebody like me who could potentially go psychotic, but I have skill sets, make them into super soldiers or splice in genes from animal, different phylospecies and genera, with a hack or human artificial chromosome, and if knuckleheads out there want to argue with me, I dare you idiots to dare call into the show or email me and think that you can argue with me and my intellect. Just try it. It'll be a tough, ugly day for you. And if you think I'm arrogant, you're wrong. I'm just competent, and I'm driven because I can see the future, and it's not a nice one. It'll make the Matrix, if we don't stop this, look like a garden party.
Well, the Matrix between Fukushima, the radiation, between Roundup and genetically modified crops, and World War III.
Yeah, the human race will
don't look good, and we've got to make an effort to turn it around. Trump is the only one that's really talking about doing that. We need
to pray for grace and for recompense for our overlords that are evil, because they're fallen human beings. But God's going to bring judgment on them. And now that we're in the birth pangs, we are literally, as it says, God is sealing up the times for time, half a time, to give us a margin of relief for at least 3.5 years, so that we can get the numbering of God's 144,000 plus, that will understand the nature of the times and seasons when the final treaty is done and they drop the mark of the beast on us. Because if you don't see it coming, you're not paying attention. You don't even need to be biblical. You just need to read your newspapers and your financial reports. Ugly stuff is coming.